Okay, so I just finished watching True Haunting. It's a Netflix documentary dramatization, I suppose you want to call it. It's kind of like part documentary, part theatrical production. And it's a great little series. It's essentially like two haunting stories done over 5 episodes. They split. The first one's got a three-parter, the second one's got a two-parter. I'd have preferred it myself as like an hour and a half long one and an hour long special, like two different specials. So you didn't have the break in between. It's done quite well as a series. I like to watch things in one big go instead of like watching an episode, stop, watch another episode. Even that was easier to digest this way. Essentially, the first story is called Eerie Hall, and they put an extra E on it to make it like Eerie, which is quite clever. Reminds me of Eerie, Indiana. Do you remember that show? So it's essentially about a guy called Chris who actually messaged me and on a comment about my thumbnail, because I did a trailer reaction for this show a couple of weeks ago, and he saw my little thumbnail and did a comment about me looking at him in a funny way. And I thought that was amazing. And I got someone else messaged me from the show as well, and that makes me feel really good because it's sort of like people are noticing things, and it did make me feel really good. And I felt quite proud of myself a little bit that people have actually noticed something I've done. And he seemed like a nice guy. The way he commented, it was really a nice thing to say. So he's great. So if you are listening, I like the fact you commented. Thank you very much for that. Now on to this thing. So watching this story unfold was amazing. The first one, Eerie Hall, as I said, is about a young lad in college for the first time. He seems like a nice, honest guy. And this is the thing about like a lot of ghost stories. Sometimes you watch people tell their ghost stories, you kind of think, oh, this is a bit dodgy or whatever. He seems honest, and he's a very likable character as well. And they said this about him in the show, that everyone seemed to like him. And he comes across when you see him doing his talking bit on the camera, very likable and very trustworthy. So I was kind of like, I mean, I'm a skeptic, but I believed him. I believed what he was saying to be true. I believe he experienced what he experienced. I'll get to my theories on it, the skepticism side of it, but I believe he believes what he saw to be what he saw. That's how he's not lying, put it that way. I don't think he's lying about what happened. So the story's basically he's in college and he's a runner as well. He likes to go out running. He wants to one day maybe do it for the Olympics. He's got his like dream of like being a professional runner, and he's really good at running as well. You see a lot of his training stuff, and also you see here that he's done really well in the past. So he goes out running the woods every day around the sort of college campus and that, and he comes back and he's having a pretty decent time. He's made a few friends in the college, a little group of guys and girls have sort of like become like nice little group of friends, and it's going really well for him. And suddenly he starts to hear voices. He hears someone calling his name, and this is the start of this weird stuff, and it kind of creeps him out a little bit. And he's running through the woods. He sees figures, and something isn't right, and he's noticing things aren't right. And then one night he's in the room with his like roommate. And they do a really clever thing with their dorm as well. They basically put another level on, so they have more space to sort of like in their room. They don't have the two beds in the room. They've just sort of done this thing that raised up a level. I think it's genius. I've got kids at home. I might do that myself. So they're sort of having this great time at university. So where we're going with hang on. Yeah, so they're living in this dorm thing, and one night they're both asleep in the bed, him and his roommate, and suddenly they sort of the roommate wakes up. He's like, "There's something down there. Like, there's something down the lower floor." So Chris goes down to have a look, can't see nothing, and the roommate is laying there, and this face appears above the bed. So like, the bed's there, and this face just sort of does that at him, and the roommate's like, and he's gone. And he leaves the campus and goes and stays at home. And so it's like, oh my god, like this has really affected this guy. And then more weird stuff starts happening to Chris. He starts having night terrors and dreams, and he's freaking out. He can't sleep in the room anymore. He starts sleeping in the hallways outside and that, sleeping in his friends' apartments. So this has really got this guy. And when he's doing the interview stuff, when you see like the talking head parts, the real people talking, and I said the rest of it's like dramatised. So you've got the real people talking, and you've got the like actors acting out what happened. When you see the real people talking, he's generally upset by what happened to him in this thing. It's still with him now, that what happened to him in this college. So then he's kind of like looking into it more, and he speaks to his dad. His dad then comes and stays with him for a bit. The dad experienced something, but not mega. He went really cold and experienced something weird. And I thought that was quite an important part as well, that his dad, who's quite sceptical as well, went there to try to see it. Didn't really experience much, but there's something wasn't right. So then dad goes home. So then Chris ends up getting like a local priest that he knows to come and go through the sort of like what priests do in that, and the priest himself felt something wasn't right about the room, and he did what priests do, the not exorcism, but like blessing on the room and that. And things got a bit better for Chris, so he was quite happy for a little bit. But then things started happening to his friends. So there was two girls that sort of hung around with them. One of them got kind of like attacked in her room, and it freaked her out a lot. And another one got pushed down in her room and like held down. They all had to run in and try to pull her back up. And it was saying not right. And she was definitely traumatized by what happened, because when they interview her in real life, you can tell that girl is breaking down. This has upset her and traumatized her from start to finish, and it's quite upsetting to watch her reaction. So you do feel for her. You do see the other friends as well. This is where kind of like I'm like with some of the other friends. So then Chris basically finds out, or actually one of Chris's friends that finds out, that there was a guy that lived in around that area at one point in time, was like a soldier, and he was attacked by Native American Indians, and they had tortured him and brutally killed him against this specific tree. They called it like, I can't remember, they called it like the death tree or something. And there's a specific tree in the woods that they got hold of him, they cut his innards out, they opened his mouth up wide with a knife and stuff like that. They really did a lot of bad stuff to this soldier when they got hold of him. These Native American Indians got hold of him. And that they believed that this was the entity that Chris was seeing. It turns out Chris had been running past that tree every day on his run. So something might have come back with him from there, and that's where this has all started. So then Chris decides, I need to end this. My friends are getting hurt now. This is destroying my life, because Chris was struggling at school now because he couldn't sleep anymore. So he's struggling with his work, struggling with his school. It was massively affecting this man's life. And you can tell again from the talking head bit that this hurt him, like emotionally. So then he like decides, I've had enough, and he goes into the woods by where this tree is and says like, come at me, you can't do this, and basically talks to the entity in itself, and it appeared in front of him in the dramatization. I don't think it appeared in front of him, and it kind of ran at him, and then it was over. It sort of stopped. But it's still, I mean, Chris finished his college. Sadly, he never went on to become a professional runner. He just did whatever he did and sort of got on with his life, sort of thing. But this stayed with him. You can tell from the way he's talking, you can see it in his eyes that he believes all this to be true. Now, being the skeptic that I am, I like to try and work out what it could be when it's not paranormal. That's just how my brain likes to think. I've done it with friends in the past, I've had paranormal experiences. I watch other shows like this with paranormal stories. I think, oh, that could have been this, that could have been this, sort of thing. And I believe he believes this. I personally, me being me, think it was a group of his friends that were doing maybe like a practical joke that kind of got way out of hand, or like a prank they want to keep going with. Didn't realise how much damage they were causing maybe, and now it's got too far. They can't go back on the stuff that's happened, so they're kind of like playing along with it. Now it's over. I think they kind of set up a few things to Chris to try and scare. That's where I go with it. Like there was one friend that was kind of like a bit of a joker, a bit of a git really when he was at university, or sorry, college. And he had another friend as well that was kind of like trying to help him out along the way, who seemed to be giving too much information and seeing too much of what was going on. Like he's the guy that took all the photos of him, and he's the guy that found out the story of what was called Tommy Boyd, who was the soldier that was killed back then. So I don't want to be nasty, because these people are probably honest to God nice people, and maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but it was kind of like, was they doing a practical joke on Chris? They maybe went too far with it, kept it going too long, and then we're like, well, we're all going to get in trouble if this comes out now, and also it's hurting people now, so maybe we've gone too far. I don't know if the girls were involved. I don't think that one girl's involved. Maybe the trauma of what was going on with the stories affected them a bit. I don't know. I don't know enough to judge, but that's how I felt watching the show, when I was like, hang on a minute, this isn't like adding up right for me. Especially that one guy says that I wasn't a very good friend to Chris, and the other guy didn't want to tell anyone. He was told by Chris not to tell anyone. He tried to keep it secret. Then he told a lot of people and spread out. So then again, I go back to sort of like young guys being young guys and trying to wind their mates up and maybe going a bit too far. I don't know. That's my personal thing on it. That's where I think the skeptical side of me goes to what could have happened. But I do believe that when Chris was talking, he was telling the truth. From his own perspective, he believes this is what happened to him. He wasn't making up a lie or being part of a prank himself, or lying about a ghost story. This was what he generally believed. And I know people that have had experiences that generally believe what happened to them happened to them. I've got my own ghost story I can tell, but I know people generally believe what happened to them, and sometimes when you try and rationalise it, they either try and ignore your rationalisation or it doesn't fit for them, which is fair enough. But that's what I felt with that story. But still, a great ghost story. I mean, as I said, I'm a skeptical. I don't believe in the afterlife, the undead and ghosts, but I love ghost stories. They still give me chills. I still get creeped out. I watch the Conjuring movies. I still get the cold shivers going down my spine. So while I'm watching these things, I believe them while I'm watching them, because I'm fully invested in the stories. And I love a ghost story. I've always loved ghost stories, even from when I was a kid, watching Poltergeist for the first time, watching Ghostbusters even, you know. I loved the idea and I fell in love with it, and then I became skeptical as I got older, and I sort of looked into different things and became very skeptical about certain things. So I can understand both sides of the story, because I was once passionately a believer, now I'm a skeptic. So I get both sides, but great story. The second story was a bit more, I'm very unsure about this story, but it was very, to me, it was like if you took every horror movie, haunting movie, like House on Haunted Hill, Poltergeist, the Conjuring films, you've got all of those, and wanted to make the most generic, and got AI to make a generic ghost story. It was the next one that comes on. The idea of a haunting in a college campus is different. You don't get that. It's always you move into a house, there's ghosts, there's hauntings. The starts like that. This was like a college campus. That's very different. It's kind of a communal thing, so that's a weird place to do it. So the floor, I'm in my loft, the floor's not great, so the camera might move around as I move. So yeah, so this story, the second story, was called This House Murdered Me, and it was about a family that bought a house. It was going really cheap at the time, and when they went, this is where the story gets weird, when they went looking around the house, they saw someone, there was words written on the wall and someone was painting over it. As they walked in, they quickly shut the door so they couldn't see what was written and stuff, and they said, no, not being funny, if you were going to buy a house and you saw someone painting over writing on a wall, you'd want to know what's on that wall. So you'd barge in, you'd have a look. They were like, no, it's fine, just tell me the house, it's great. They bought this house, and then weird stuff started happening. So like the mum goes, this is where I was a bit, so the mum, to earn extra money, goes and works for what seems to be, I mean, I don't know American culture, but it seems like a brothel, and she takes the phone calls at the brothel. But then later on, it kind of hints that maybe she's selling herself in a weird way. There's a scene where you see her walk out of the place, and there's a guy walking into a car, which is what happens a lot in strip clubs and stuff, when they get a security guard to walk them to their car in case something bad happens. And the same thing, I guess, happens in brothels as well, because they have those in America, a lot legalized ones in America. It was in Salt Lake City, so I don't know if they have legalized brothels, but it seemed that's what she was working for, answering phones there. She's a former Mormon who had a kid very, very young out of wedlock, and she kind of left the Mormon church. Her mum's still a pub, but she left the Mormon church, and then she's living with her husband quite happily and her 2 kids, and they buy this house. And I said, she's working this sex work thing, and that was a weird part they told us, but it was to do with what happens later. So she's now doing that to earn money to pay for the house, because they find a lot more damage in the house than they originally thought. Again, all this is sounding very much like Hill House to me. So the dad's now kind of like stay-at-home dad and sorting out the house, because he's like a handyman, fix-it man, again, like Hill House. If you watch that TV show on Netflix as well, by the way, I'm currently watching it now. This is why I call it simulation. I'm currently watching that now with one of my daughters, and she's loving that show, but I'm seeing the parallels to this story, which is kind of strange, where the dad now takes over the work in the house. He's trying to fix everything in the house because he's kind of like a handyman type, and the mum now goes out to work, so he's getting a lot of the pressure on him, and he's experiencing like weird noises, seeing things, hearing things. Their son, who I feel really bad for, because again, this is a guy who, when he's telling, the son's telling his version of events, I believe him. I believe he saw what he thinks he saw. He was young at the time. He was only a kid at the time, probably about 6 or something. And he believed there was someone in his closet, like trying to come through the closet, and he kept seeing things in the closet. And he breaks down while telling this story. So I kind of believe the son a lot, that he believes what he saw to be true. And then you get this story of sort of like, they start experiencing like weird figures, like a group of friends come over and they all saw this weird figure try and walk across the grass then disappear, and it sends a shiver down your spine, because those sort of stories to me send shivers down my spine. So even though, again, don't believe in it, but it still creeps me out, the idea of saying like coming up behind me or whatever, it would freak the crap out of me. Like even standing in this loft now, I'm telling you these stories, I'm getting the shivers down my spine now thinking about it. So anyway, they've experienced a few different things in this house since then. Then one night the grandma comes over, who's still part of the Mormon church, comes over, and the two boys experience a weird thing during a laundry shoot where they sense there's someone else in the laundry chute with them, and it freaks them out. Again, you've seen Hill House. And then you've got the nan goes to sleep in the bed, and then she feels like she's been dragged out of the bed by something. So she's now freaked out, and she says to her daughter, like, this isn't right, this isn't normal. Then the daughter tells her, like, I've been doing this kind of sex work stuff, and being a very religious woman, she's, well, you've invited this in. You doing that sinful thing as invited. Again, she says she's only answering phones at the sex workplace, or the adult dating, or whatever it was called, place. So I don't know how that's sinful, but the mum says she's invited this sinful thing into the house, so the devil's come after you, basically. It was kind of creepy, like the mum. The mum, to me, is a bit too creepy. Again, very horror movie villainy type creepy, super excessive religious woman. So I thought that was a bit weird myself. So then the mum's kind of like, I'll take the kids away from it because they're freaked out, I'll take them away. And then you get the sort of mum and the dad sort of trying to work out what's going on. They end up doing like their own little like blessing in the house with sage, and that the dad, being a bit of a handyman, he does the kind of Tim the Tall Man Taylor sort of bit that sort of goes over the top. So he gets the leaf blower and attaches the sage to it and gets like a sage sort of like leaf blower, like to do the whole house. That made me laugh. It reminded me of very much something like Tim the Tall Man Taylor would do in Home Improvements. That sort of like going over the top, like, whoa, we ain't doing sage with a little thing, we're gonna leaf blow the sage out, like same from Ghostbusters almost, you know what I mean? It's saying like that, really over the top stuff. So then they sort of bless the house a bit, sort that out, but they think it goes away, but then it comes back. Now, while this is going on, one of the neighbours talks to the guy that owns it, and he tells him that a few years back, the guy that lived there, I think his name was David at the time, lived there. He kept coming out the house and shouting at the house every so often. And then eventually David's wife and kids left him. Then he left there and went to a motel and killed himself. So they're believing that the spirit in the house is this guy David who killed himself. Turns out it's not. So also while this is happening, there's a lot happens in this house. Again, back to Hill House a little bit here. So they find there's a room that's kind of like hidden. So there's been walled over. They find a window on the outside. So then they smash down the room. They find all these drawings on the wall, like children's drawings, but they're a bit creepy. Now the thing that annoyed me the most is they took photos of after they painted it. They didn't take photos of the drawings. So I'd have liked to have seen pictures of these drawings that were on the walls. But instead of that, all they've done, which is kind of like where I thought, oh, this is a bit dodgy, this, is they've just taken photos of the after, but they didn't take photos of the drawings. So I was like, Anyway, so there were creepy drawings on the walls. So where these creepy drawings are on the walls, they then make this into a cupboard, this secret room. And you get a moment where the dad goes into the basement and he gets like hit, falls on the floor, and this presence steps on him and says, leave it alone. So that freaks a lot of people out as well. So then they do the blessing, as I said, and it all goes away. The kids move back into the house, and then it kicks off one night when suddenly they're all laying in bed, and suddenly there's a child in the doorway. And it says to the woman, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. So they grab the kids and they just leave the house. They don't go back. They send a paranormal team of investigators in there, like your classic Most Haunted type paranormal team investigators, or whatever, Hauntings America, whatever it's called. They go in, these two lads go in, they do this paranormal investigation. They hear voices, and the voices sound like mummy and all this stuff, like what the woman had been hearing. While she had heard some weird stuff, she'd heard voices, and she had a moment where she was in the bath as well, where something pushed her into the bath. Again, if you've seen other horror movies, like, you could say Nightmare on Elm Street for that one, or you could say What Lies Beneath. So again, stuff we've heard from different films, all AI put together almost, you know. So then we get that happen, and the mum's like hearing these voices on this, they do that electro voice phenomenon reading thing, and you can hear like, it's one of those things where you hear static and you can hear kind of what you want to hear sometimes. And she hears something saying mummy and he's coming, all this sort of stuff that she'd heard in the house herself. So now we've got the paranormal investigator. Then they send in a medium, and they basically go back through the records before the medium comes in. Sorry, they go back through the records and they find out that there used to be someone called William and Ruth that lived there. And we find out that from a medium that David is not the person living in this house. So the guy that killed himself after moving in the house is not him haunting this house. It's someone called William. And William was a former Mormon as well. And he had 4 kids. And whatever William was doing to the 4 kids, he knew that when in the Mormon tradition, when you get to a certain age, you have to confess stuff that's happened. And William knew that once those kids confessed what had happened, they'd find out stuff he'd done. So I don't know if he was abusing them or what he was doing to these kids, but whatever those kids were going to confess would have given it up. So William had killed his children. Well, this is speculation. William had killed his children and burnt them in the furnace that was downstairs in the basement. So that's where a lot of what was going on was coming from, the seeing the children and hearing voices and seeing kids, and also this William creature that put his foot on the guy's chest, the owner's chest. So that was that. And so send this medium in, I think her name was Debbie the medium, send this medium in, and she does the classic medium stuff like sensing stuff. And if you believe that, if you don't believe it, you know what a medium does. They go around the house and she goes into this closet room that they found and says that the William guy was in there. And she basically banishes him out, opens the windows up, and everything gets better. The family still don't end up living, they end up moving away, and they go live from different locations. But whoever moved in there after them has stayed, and is still there now. But like, to go to some really good points. So to me, again, the skeptical side of me, I think that this was a classic case of they moved into the house. They thought it was going to be an easy fix, and it wasn't. It took them a lot more money than they thought, and they were kind of paying, and they come up with this ghost story and that. I think the parents kind of egged the ghost story on a bit. Maybe they did experience some weird stuff, but that got dramatised up. But I think it really affected their kid, because when they're interviewing the kid, he physically breaks down at one point, starts crying his eyes out, like no one believed him, because he had told his parents about this freaky stuff in the bedroom, and no one listened to him. Like, his parents were ignoring him. But then I was like, were they sort of egging it on? I don't know, but he was very traumatized. So again, I believed what he was saying. The dad, there's something about the dad when he was talking. Again, if I'm wrong and you see this, I'm very, very sorry. I don't want to give any diss to you, but he was too, it was almost like he was reading it, I don't know, it's like, he was too stern about it all. Like, I did this happened. The mum was crying and having like thing, but it was kind of like, not acting, but kind of like almost put on at some points. It felt like when the son did it, it didn't feel put on. When she did it, I kind of got a sense of like, it's almost crocodile teary. But again, if you're seeing this, I apologise to you. I don't mean to diss you in any way. It's just how I felt watching the screen. Might be the way it comes across on camera. But again, I didn't believe their story as much as I believe what happened to Chris. I don't believe, but like, I believe Chris believed everything, and he was being honest on that screen. Everything he was saying was being honest. I don't so much agree with the parents of being as honest about things when the talking heads bit happened as they were in the previous story, in the Eerie story. So basically, you find, I forgot to mention, so you find the writing on the wall that they saw being covered up by the painters when they first went to buy the house. Turns out that's what it said on there, was "This house murdered me," in red paint. But then I was like, that doesn't make sense. Who wrote that? Because it wouldn't be the children that wrote that. It wouldn't have been Bill or William or Ruth that used to live there that killed their kids and that. It wouldn't be them either. And it wouldn't have been David who killed himself, because he killed himself after he left the house. It's not like he went back and, right, this house murdered me and killed himself in the house. I can get that. But someone wrote "This house murdered me" and left. And they find this out because the painter in a shop, this is where it gets a bit convoluted, so, or not convoluted, a bit too coincidental. So when the owner of the house, the dad, is talking to someone in the shop about trying to find out who did the painting and all that and decorating the house before they moved in, the guy standing behind him happens to be the person. So I got a phone call just then as I was recording. So yeah, the guy standing behind him in the line as he's waiting, as talking to the guy about who did the painting and decorating before, happened to be someone that did the painting and decorating to cover up the paint, and told him what was written on, that something was written behind the thing. It's called the Red Rum House, obviously back to The Shining. So yeah, it was a weird, too many coincidences for me, too much like a generic horror story. It's literally, they took all the haunted house stories, chucked them in a big AI machine, and it printed out this story. It's too cliche to me to be an original story. It felt like they'd watched so many different horror films, they kind of wrote their own version of it. That's how it felt to me. I do believe the son was affected by it though. They were saying about the way he teared up and got upset. It seemed a bit real to me. But anyway, guys, yeah, so that's the two stories. I preferred the first story to the second story. But then again, that only had 2 episodes, so maybe if it was a bit longer, it would have had better. And as I said, if they'd have made it one big mini movie, like an hour special, and then did an hour and a half special for the first one, it, to me, I'd have liked that bit more, just the way I am. But it was great, and I enjoyed watching it. And there's some real good, if you're a big horror fan, if you like The Conjuring stuff, it's very much in the vein of those, the dramatisation bits. Not as strong as that, a bit more of a watered down version. But like, they used similar style jump scares. The characters look very similar to what you see in The Conjuring. The way sort of the mood of the thing is, the jump scare. There's some really good jump scares in this as well, especially that first one. I jumped a couple of times. When that little head comes over the thing, I was like, and there's a couple of times when Chris sort of, like, something happens to him, and the stuff in the woods. Like, the character that's the former soldier is very Conjuring-y, but very sort of, like, scary looking. And, like, they do some real good jump scare moments where you see something behind someone, and you don't, oh, well done to them doing that. Because it is a James Wan thing as well. And James Wan, as we know, he's Mr. Conjuring, so, like, he produced it. So he probably, a lot of people directed it, but he probably had a hand in it somewhere. But definitely, get yourselves to Netflix, check it out. It's well worth watching. It's a great horror story, especially this spooky season. Good ghost stories, good portrayal, and just great little stories. As I said, I'm not a believer in it, but I love a good ghost story, and these are quite good little ghost stories. But thank you very much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. There's other stuff on the channel, so go look for that if you want to. And I'll check out my little the comment section on the trailer reaction I did. I'll probably put it somewhere there in a bit, and you'll be able to see that for yourselves. But thank you very much again for watching, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you get some good ghost stories going, because Netflix is doing some quite good stuff at the minute. So, and I hope you like my spooky setting. I'm up here getting the Halloween stuff down, ready for the outside, because I'll be doing some stuff with that soon. So that's why I'm up here, and that's up there all year round. So I love it. Some workmen come up here and probably crap themselves. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching again, and I'll see you guys very, very soon for another review or trailer reaction or something. Bye.